Hello, friends, benders, and non-benders alike. Welcome to Braving the Elements, Nickelodeon's podcast about all things Avatarverse. I'm Janet Varney.
And I'm Dante Basco. And Varney, I'm very excited about this episode because we are going to be talking about something that we in the Fire Nation have needed a few times throughout history. A few times. We all have, but in the Fire Nation especially. But also because we have a banger of a guest for this conversation.
This is going to be a good one. And that was a very good point, my friend. The Fire Nation has definitely been in need of some redemption opportunities. I would say its leadership hasn't always made the best choices. Can I simplify it to that?
At the same time, there have been, and always will be, and I do not want it to ever be forgotten. There's some good people in the Fire Nation, Varney. Good people in the Fire Nation.
Good people in the Fire Nation, indubitably. Who doesn't love a character who begins on one side of a conflict and ends in an entirely different place? But let's not sleep on our amazing guest for this week. Let's bring him into the conversation. Returning to the show is our friend, the award-winning artist and writer of the first 5 Avatar graphic novel trilogies, and he's also done so much more. You should revisit the episode that we did with him. We give him a lot of love. Please welcome Gene Luen Yang. Gene, you're
Gene,
back.
welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back. It's so great to see you both. Thank you. This is an honor.
Well, the honor is ours. The honor is ours. It's great to have you back, especially for an important conversation about redemption, where you have helped the redemption stories for many characters throughout throughout the Avatarverse.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics. Actually, is redemption, because I think there's something about redemption that just makes a story so satisfying, right? Like like stories are all about character arcs. They're all about character changes, and you can't get more change than through a redemption.
When Gene and I were emailing about this, he was like, what else is there to discuss? Like, you want to talk about I know what redemption is best from the show. Like, what else is there? And I was like, I know. Let's throw some bones at some other characters and then we'll get into the one that really matters.
We know about that one. But I think there's a lot of different... The great thing is a lot of characters go on this journey, and they have different redemptions in different ways.
Yeah.
Great point. But
and there is a debate about whether it's the greatest redemption of the show or it's the greatest redemption of all of American television.
Yeah.
Right? That's a
strong
topic
argument to be made.
People have come to me and I just look at them like, my mind can't even go there.
Yeah. My mind can go there. I think it absolutely is. I mean, it is among the top, if not the best, that I've ever encountered. So let's go back to what you were saying, Gene, 'cause I love what you said about redemption in storytelling and how compelling that is. And, what I was going to say before is like, I think it's so important for us as people, because many of us, if not all of us, I would imagine that all of us at some point or another have needed redemption in some way. We all make mistakes. We all hurt people, whether we mean to or not. Having that opportunity. And then it's also, so it's satisfying, I think, from a hopeful place of like, if this character can experience this and can make this decision and come back around, then that's possible for me. And also when we're on the flip side of it, right? Just understanding that like, we may be in a position where we have the opportunity and maybe even the need to forgive someone, right?
Yeah, so Janet, you were talking about hope, and I think that's exactly it. I think that's why we're all so drawn to these redemption stories, because each of us has like parts of us that we're kind of ashamed of. And when we see somebody get redeemed on the screen, then it gives us hope about those parts of our own being,
For ourselves, right?
And just in humanity.
Right. Why
too.
am I so bad at being good? That's everybody. Every day.
That's right.
Me included. That's why we want to be redeemed.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of mess ups.
Hope is huge. It definitely gets people through moments where it feels like there's not much else. So that totally makes sense to me. Let's talk about, before we dig into the one that we know we're going to be talking about, let's just like touch base with some honorable mentions, because there are other characters in the show. You said it, Dante. There are other characters in the show who have these kind of mini arcs, or who, we think of as being this one type of person, and then we see them make a choice that surprises us, that maybe we didn't even expect. Maybe we didn't even have time to hope because we weren't hoping for it, and we just were surprised.
Who wants to start? Who do you want to start with?
Well, Here's an example. Okay, well, let me throw this out as an example. This is actually kind of like a philosophical question for you both. Let's take a character like Paku. Paku refuses. I mean, he is a key turning point in Katara's waterbending. We are at the Northern Water Tribe. By the way, Gene was with us for Siege of the North Part 2, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of kick it off with a character that we all talked about together. He won't teach her waterbending.
He's a jerk.
He's holding on to this.
He's a jerk.
What we would consider to be outdated idea about what women can do with their waterbending.
He was a jerk.
And ultimately, he does redeem himself in the sense that he does teach her. My concern about this has always been like, I want to be like, good job, Paku, thanks.
I kind of don't like him the whole time.
I'm still worried that I'm worried that he had the wrong takeaway because I don't remember. I guess in the end he is like, women can waterbend, but I feel like it's all about the necklace. Like if the necklace weren't there,
100%.
would he have redeemed himself? And so is that Gene? You as a creator, as an author, is that almost like a Deus ex machina? Like something else kind of hands his redemption to him. You know what I mean? It's like
helps him along. It helps him along.
Right? Versus like an internal decision.
So Dante, you're saying you don't like him the whole time, even at the very end?
I mean, this is the deal. You know, you meet him and you're like, I ain't into this guy. And then he spouts all this like really negative, like sexist stuff. I'm like, wow, this guy's a jerk. And then, you know, he comes around. But you know, you meet that person, they rub you wrong early in the game.
Yep.
You're like,
I
mean, I don't hate you, my guy. But I'm not like trying to hang out with you. I'm not like,
I might forgive, but I don't forget.
Yeah, like you're cool. You're with the crew. We're gonna go save the world. Thank you for like dropping some of your
Thanks for the magical water
and stuff like that. It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't hate you.
You're not my favorite.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't mess with you that hard.
Yeah, I see.
What do you think about that?
I gotcha. Well, you know, maybe there are levels of redemption. Maybe like redemption is on a scale.
Point.
You know, and maybe for him, he is definitely redeemed, right? So he's over like 50% mark, but maybe he's only at like a D minus. Maybe that's like a 61% redemption.
We pass him. We pass him through the grade, but we all know it wasn't that great.
Yeah, that's right.
That necklace really, you know. Luckily, we had that necklace.
That's right.
I
know. That's what I'm saying, that necklace. Okay, here's another example of that I would love to get both of your opinions on. So when we first meet June and Nyla, June Shirshu, I mean, that is a terrifying character. But, you know, we associate it with something very dangerous. We associate it with Aang potentially getting caught. Obviously, Zuko's in a very different frame of mind than he is by the end of the series, and certainly by the time we meet June again.
Yeah.
But so, you don't have to defend him right now. It's fine.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying.
Yeah. It happens.
It happens, and people get hired. It's like people gotta people get to work. People need to make money in the whole Avatar verse. You just can't go around doing stuff like people have.
He's supporting the economy.
Bounty hunters
He's supporting the
bounty
economy.
hunt.
That's right.
I mean, that's what their jobs are. What are we talking about? What are you supposed to do?
Because for me, I love those characters, and yet at the same time, you know, when you bring June back, and now you're trying to find Aang in a positive way,
right? Someone
could almost interpret that as like, hey, June actually ended up being this thing that helped in the situation. If we were on the side of Team Avatar and we're looking towards the morally right and all of that, so she's a sort of helpful character. But is she sort of morally neutral?
I never saw her as a bad guy.
She's just doing it for the job.
I never saw her as a bad guy. She was like another bad guy. She was like a person in the world that wasn't as involved in the political schemes of what was going on. But she's always had her own moral fiber. That was the thing. She always was true to herself, you know?
Yeah. But do you think she's true to anybody else besides her and her?
I mean,
I kind of don't think so.
She's for hire. She's for hire.
Yeah. So in a situation like that, we wouldn't necessarily call that redemption. Like if we're trying to kind of understand and define what redemption means for us in this story and in this universe, we wouldn't necessarily say just because I like June more when she's working for us instead of for the bad guy.
Exactly.
That doesn't really mean like, oh, June's redeemed, yay. Is that
totally?
Do we agree on that?
100%.
Like, do you think if you were like her best friend, do you think you would have noticed a change in her personality or her character from the beginning to the end?
No, I don't think there's any difference at all. Right?
Yeah.
I like June.
I do too. I do too.
I like June.
I think she's
into
she's
June.
like kind of amoral.
Shirshu also not the most aesthetically pleasing animal, but very
that
Poor
nose is terrible.
Nyla.
I mean, she's powerful as far as animals in the Avatar. I mean, Appa #1, obviously top tier.
Yeah.
Nyla the Shirshu is top 3 for sure. Top 3.
Ooh, top 3. I don't know if I go there.
Nyla can find anybody in the Avatar verse anywhere.
She's kind of like
about just power.
Just power.
Yeah.
About like top 3, like useful, like what you want to have in your situation.
She's kind of like the Ty Lee of animals. Like she can immobilize someone,
and she can immobilize because of her poison.
Yeah. Wait, is Nyla a girl or a boy? I think Nyla might be.
I don't know.
We don't know.
I mean, if Zuko had Nyla, what are we talking about?
I don't trust Zuko.
If Zuko had Nyla early in the game before before he was able to kind of find the light, game over.
Yeah.
Zuko and Nyla.
You could be right.
Spin-off series. Zuko and Nyla in the sunset.
Like
the
an
Fire
alternative
Nation.
universe version.
That's right.
Where Zuko wins at the beginning. Or bad Zuko wins at the beginning.
And he has Nyla.
Yeah. I would watch that very special
goodness.
episode of like just seeing it through out from
if
the he
Zuko
wins
had
early.
Nyla season 1, no one can talk to him. Don't talk to me, you guys.
You're right.
Uncle
you're
Iroh,
right. I think you're
I don't
right.
need to talk to you no
There'd only be
more.
one season.
I have
There'd only
Nyla.
be one
Yeah.
season.
Speaking of season 1, you guys, and this one I'm almost afraid. I almost want to inch my chair further away from Dante on this one. Let's talk about redemption for a character.
Who?
Maybe a certain character who's complicated. Maybe he's got a background that's complicated. He's got some root causes that might lead him to make a series of decisions that are
we talking about Jet? We talking about
yes,
Jet? We talking about top 3? Are we talking about top 3 of redemption?
You
questionable.
Do
I don't know.
you think that Jet redeems himself? Now
Is he dead?
I mean,
if
I
he's
believe
dead,
that
he's
he
redeemed.
is, but I don't say. I'm not saying I want him to be dead, but
He's dead. He's dead.
my God.
Do we talk about this?
We've talked about it.
We've
We've talked about this.
I know, but I can't.
Fake mortal wound. Mortal wound.
I know.
Let it go.
I'm with you guys. Yeah, I'm with you guys as a fan, but as a writer, I saw the notes.
No.
That dude is dead.
No,
the guy said yes. Bryke said that's
Elvis,
true.
Tupac.
Okay, here
I've
we go.
seen him around.
Yeah.
There's sightings. There's Jet sightings all over the Avatar verse. We don't know.
I've had one. I've seen him in the peripheral, my periphery vision at Target.
The Tupac Elvis of the Avatar verse. He will never die. He's around.
Okay, all right. Jet.
It is complicated.
He's a frustrating character. We have a sense of his backstory, so we understand why he is the way he is. When we see him again, there is a little bit of like here's Jet, and then it doesn't necessarily go the way we think it's going to. You know, here we have him trying to expose Iroh and Zuko as firebenders in Ba Sing Se, but then he gets brainwashed, and that's an interesting thing. I'd love to hear what you think about, Gene, is what happens when a character that we think of as being not on our side or morally something unethical happening, or he's made bad choices, no matter why, but then something happens to him that makes him very vulnerable. What is that all about? Like suddenly you feel sympathy. What's that?
Yeah, I think we all have like this innate sense of justice, right? And when somebody like when we see a character do something bad, we feel like, ooh, he needs to get his. But then when he gets it, and it's more than we think he deserves, then we end up on his side. And I think that's what happened to Jet, right? We wanted him to get punished in some way, but he got punished more than we thought he deserved, and that made us like him.
That's very fascinating. But I think you're totally correct about that. And the thing I love about Jet, and I think the interesting thing about makes him such an interesting character in this story is, he's not necessarily a bad guy. Because think about it. The Fire Nation's bad, right? So if you're doing something bad against the bad guys, he's this gray character that's very in the world, like the world we live in, where there's not good and there's good and bad, and there's this gray area. And he's this complete character that, because in our minds we're like, okay, they are the bad guys. So if you're gonna strike against the bad guys, then are you a good guy, or are you? We don't like you in this other space, and so it lies in us. I think everyone I get where he's coming from. Yeah. Because he's not ever coming from a bad place. He's coming from a hurt place, from a place where these people killed my family or destroyed my thing, and so I'm fighting against the evils of whatever that was, and so it's like a justify. It's very strange. It's like hard. It's complicated. It's kind of a complicated thing, and then when he when he gets brainwashed, he kind of gets used as a pawn. Like he has all this extra. It's like someone who was already damaged and hurt going through the world, and then ultimately becomes his demise. And so I don't know if that's redemption, but it makes him an anti-hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why we all like him so much.
Yeah,
There's this
for
question. There's like he brings up this question about when you're fighting evil, how much force are you allowed?
Right.
How much
Great
force are you allowed?
point.
And is it like unlimited? I feel like he acts in a way where it's kind of like he can do whatever he wants to the bad guy,
right?
And it's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
But then, do we agree with that?
Right.
And do we
I
think?
feel like that's the question that comes up.
And do we think the little girl with the little dolly that's floating down the river?
Oh, wow, that was dark. That was dark.
She's not the bad guy.
No. But
Thank goodness that little girl is
Jet
safe.
was like, "Hey, man, we got to send a message."
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. And then to top it all off, then we have him helping Appa get found, which anybody who points anyone in the direction of reuniting Aang and Appa is going to get some major scout points before they are dealt their mortal blow, in my mind.
Very true.
So I think that's kind of cool because he sort of gets this last act that puts a button on the sympathy we were already feeling for him because of being brainwashed and and everything he went through before then. And then he does this like last great thing, which he doesn't know was going to be the last great thing, but it's a pretty great thing.
It's a pretty great thing.
Like there are ways of building sympathy for a character, right? And there are passive ways and active ways. And I think it was such good writing that they started it passive and then they ended it with him making this active choice.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
I love that. Passive and active.
I love that.
That's wonderful. Okay. Quick shout out to Ty Lee and May for their moment, risking their own safety. Some could say their lives by turning on Azula to help the gang escape from Boiling Rock.
Great redemption.
I mean,
I was impressed.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
But it's interesting because, again, you have these characters who we are very aware of Azula, what her aim is, what her choices are, and why she's choosing what she's choosing. And yet we never fully feel like May and Ty Lee are on board for that. Like, we don't necessarily feel that's so it feels like they're just living in the moment inside of this friendship that may or may not be slightly based on intimidation,
right,
or something. But that's interesting to me. Like, Gene, what do you think about that? The idea of like, well, are they fully redeeming themselves, or are we just seeing the fact that like maybe they were never really that on board for all of her plans in the first place? I mean, they were ride or die with her for a long time. So
yeah. I think what you brought up about intimidation is totally right. Like their redemption might not be from evil to good. It might be from like being a coward, like being cowardly to being brave. Because I think we've all had these friends in our lives that kind of bully us into being friends with them, and we know that they're not good for us.
Right. We know.
Can you imagine?
We know they might not.
We know.
They might be. They might be tricking us into like going along with them to steal gum at the local 7-Eleven. Theoretically.
Got the alpha friend,
the
alpha friend leaning on us.
Yeah, that's right, alpha friend. And you're doing bad, but what makes the difference is you finally get the courage to walk away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they did.
And the other thing is,
to walk away.
You can only push people so far. You can only push people so far.
Right. Yeah.
And if you remember in Boiling Rock, she was about to kill.
Yeah.
She was about to kill her brother and these people, and then May was like, "Oh, this is too far.
Yeah.
We can't go that far. You're gonna actually kill you. It was too much."
Yeah,
I think you see, you these people can only push people so far before they're going to, have to work up the bravery, or they become a complete slave to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Let's talk about someone who's extremely instrumental and very much tied up in our Zuko redemption that we all love so much. But Uncle Iroh himself, I mean, he's the Dragon of the West.
The Dragon of the West.
We hear these stories about him. We hear this about the siege on Ba Sing Se. We know that he has this very, his relationship to his son and what happened to his son, and the fact that war is this thing he was great at and commanded and then lost his son to this same concept. And now he's inextricably tied to Zuko's redemption. How much of don't you feel like he's on his journey for that redemption as well?
I feel we see the tip of an iceberg in the show the story we've got. I mean, he's the Dragon of the West. My feeling is like when someone is as amazing as Iroh has become and who we all aspire to be, and really taking his nephew under his wing and kind of puts him on the right path, like to get to this Zen sageful place, the pendulum must have swung the other way to be a general in the most treacherous army the Avatar versus ever seen, and be a part of that for so many years. So I think the redemption goes beyond the story that we even know, possibly.
Yeah. Like how bad do you think he was?
I don't know.
Do you think he was worse than Ozai at some point?
I don't know. I mean, look, he's Ozai's older brother.
But we know he protected
the dragon.
The dragons.
My uncle Iroh said he faced the last dragon and killed it.
So your uncle lied?
Actually, it wasn't a total lie. Iroh was the last outsider to face the Masters. They deemed him worthy and passed the secret on to him as well.
He must have lied to protect them.
We know he protected the dragons.
He always had it in him.
That's a really interesting,
But it's like, I don't know. We don't, when you're on the thirst for power, and you are taking over the world. You were a part of, taking over the world. He was a part of, or at least maintaining the taking over the world.
You almost. What do you think, Gene? How bad do you think he was?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's a good contrast to Jet, right? Like Jet has this tragedy happen to him, and it actually makes him harder. Like it makes him more of a warrior. But then for Iroh, he has this tragedy happen to him, and it actually softens him. So maybe there's something inside of him from the very beginning that was good.
That's a great point. And the other thing I would say too is very much along those lines, that you could almost see, like those soldier stories where, I hate to say just following orders, but if he's wrapped up in the sort of, I'm part of this machine or this legacy, and I'm good at this thing, and I'm showing up to be good at this thing, that you can kind of get away with not thinking about it that much until you're confronted with something that makes you reevaluate everything that you were just sort of on autopilot for in some way. And then you really realize, like, oh, I have all these skills, or I have, this great capacity for all of this power. Where have I been pointing that? And is there a way for me to put that to a better place? And instead of conquering thousands, what if I just change one nephew's life, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, Iroh.
There's plenty more story there, because how did he end up on the ship with Zuko? Because I don't know what the whole arc, the character arc of his whole life is, and I would love to. I can't wait. That's the show I want to see.
Yeah,
that's the show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Dragon of the West.
All right, before we talk about Zuko, I don't know. It keeps seeming like maybe I'm putting it off, but let's talk about people who could have had redemption and did not. Just a couple. Just a quick couple.
Let's go for it.
Because I feel like we do need to acknowledge.
Like who?
Well, we'll acknowledge a big bad in just a second. But like, for example, and this is the biggest of bads too, but like, for example, here you have, when we find out this story between Sozin and Roku, we see all of these ups and downs. We see how close they were. And we see this opportunity that Sozin has to save his friend. Oh. And we actually watch him actively make the decision not to redeem himself.
Yeah, it's a reverse of redemption. You'd think he was going to.
Redemption.
It was like, he's like, man, he's going to get rebirth somewhere.
Oh.
He was like, you'll just reincarnate later on. What are you doing?
Oh. Ew, I bet he did think that. I bet he was like, you're fine.
You're
the Avatar, whatever. You'll be in somebody else's body. You're fine.
Yeah, he had it going early in the game. He's like,
rude.
I'm the Fire Lord. You're the Avatar. Let's run this whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sozin.
My goodness.
Boo to Sozin. And here we have
this. Ozai's a chip off the old block.
Oh, for sure. 1,000%.
Yeah.
And then we have this kind of anti-Zuko story, right? And it's not a coincidence. I don't think any of us think it's a coincidence that the anti-Zuko story is Zuko's sister,
Azula,
which is this character that gets spoken about in the fandom and in just sort of coming at it with a critical eye time and time again. Is she a character who deserved redemption? Is she a character capable of self-redemption? Does it matter? Do you just sometimes need a character that you can compare and contrast with so that we do have the Zuko story living there?
It's polarizing. It's a whole part of the community that's like waiting for someday to be a redemption for Azula. Right. And there's a part of the community that's like, no, she's the villain.
Right.
There, every Batman needs a Joker. Every whatever, she's just she's such a wonderful, tantalizing character.
Yeah.
So,
Gene, where do you fall on that?
I was going to ask you.
Oh, I think she's bad.
What side do you fall on that one?
I think she's bad.
She's bad all the way through.
I think she was. Ever. Unfortunately, I'm too interested in psychology, and I think that she was born with like the dark triad.
Bad seed. The bad seed.
She was the bad seed. I think that it has to be nature, nurture. But the nature part is like if you're born with a different brain, then you just may not have the chance, especially if you're in an abusive environment. You just may not have the gear in your brain to feel that empathy. Some people just don't have it. They aren't born with it, and they don't have it.
As a brother with siblings and a sister, I always hope for a redemption for the sibling.
Sure. Well, hoping is different than whether it's possible.
Yeah, but she's from what I've seen and what I've read and what the things you wrote also. It seems
you're part of this.
You're part of this. I've read some of this stuff where I'm like, oh, she's not coming back. It's hard to see, though.
I'm not saying I don't feel sympathy for her.
I mean, I would hate
she's
to
not
acting. She's not getting redeemed. It's not happening.
Would hate to live without love. I would hate to live without love. I would hate to live without empathy. I think that would be such an empty life to find yourself only finding pleasure in feeling that you're the one in control or feeling that you've got someone, you're manipulating someone, or you know what I mean?
Right.
But Gene, don't skirt this. What do you think?
Yeah, I one of my favorite episodes in the whole series was the beach, and I think it's because you get this little glimpse of the humanity behind Azula, right? And I do think like when we were working on the books, we did talk about this. We did talk about whether Azula should be redeemed or not, and we thought like the Search was the second volume of the comics, and that felt too early. That felt too early.
Yeah.
But I do think I'm like Dante. I think the world's about hope. Like the Avatar verse is about hope.
Absolutely.
So that hope should always exist for every character.
Right.
Including
you guys are making me feel
somebody
bad.
as bad as
I hope.
Azula.
I hope, but maybe she'll be redeemed like, on her deathbed, like Darth Vader.
I just don't.
It could be like that, right?
Like Darth Vader's about to die, and like now redeem me. You're like, okay, cool. You did all this stuff. For your whole life.
Here's the thing. Even in the beach, using the beach as an example, even in the beach, to me, it is not very encouraging when the most hope I have ever felt about her in any way is her apologizing to Ty Lee.
Okay, calm down. I didn't mean what I said. Look, maybe I just said it because I was a little jealous.
What?
Like, that's a small moment, and in my mind, I'm like, record scratch, like, stop everything, this is huge. It's like, wait, she apologized to her friend? Everyone does that. Why is this, like, moving a mountain for you,
That
Janet?
was the biggest
You know what I mean? But it's each
vulnerability
and I do ship Azula, and I do ship Azula.
Shout out to Azula.
But so I think that's the problem. Like, I feel sympathy for her when she says she was right, of course, but it still hurt. The thing is that that's not the same as her saying, I'm sorry for what happened to my mother, or I'm sorry for how I treated Zuko.
Damn!
She's saying, my feelings were hurt. Well, guess what? You can be a pretty heartless person, and you can still feel real sorry for yourself. Again, I feel sympathy because I don't want people to feel like they're being, of course I want parents to love their children and to tell their children how special they are. That is very tragic. But again, it's hard to know when her expression of that is still kind of like, and it hurt my feelings because everyone should tell me how wonderful I am.
Good Great Ala. Good Great Ala. Love Great Ala.
We love our Great Ala.
When we're thinking of Azula, it's hard not to just hear the masterful performance of Great Ala.
I would say Gray's personality in real life goes a long way towards me giving more hope to Azula.
Yes.
Having redemption. So that's where things get really meta. For sure, but she does not. But
I've
we
only
don't
met
see
her
it
once,
happen.
but I heard she's the exact opposite.
She's so warm.
Is she like the
She's
exact
so
opposite
warm.
of Azula?
That doesn't mean she doesn't love doing Azula and being mean, but she is the warmest, most sweet and lovable.
Yes, and her talent is as skillful as Azula's.
Yeah,
Firebending,
absolutely.
sharp.
So we have this character that you just, I mean, we are looking at a very dry desert of redemptive moments for
I don't know.
Azula.
What is the
Great
opposite of
when she
redemption? What is the
apologizes.
opposite of
It's
redemption?
like condemnation. It's like self-condemnation.
Condemnation.
Almost. But we have our Zuko, and he does have this extraordinary journey. We were just an episode or so ago, we were talking about our favorite non-benders, and we ended up talking about the Blue Spirit as a sort of separate non-bender character. And I was talking about how much his journey in the experience of being the Blue Spirit and the choices he makes when he is the Blue Spirit is such a big part of his redemption, because that's, I think for me, right? Am I crazy? Like, Gene,
no,
that's
it's amazing.
the first time you really see him start to make choices that you're like, wait a minute. He is making some compassionate choices that seem in direct opposite. I mean, that really seems like it's representing that good side of him.
But what's
right, guys?
cool sometimes is, in this bizarre way, like he's cosplaying another person that's not Zuko, and it's not the Prince of the Fire Nation. It's not this whole thing he's been living with of banishment. And so sometimes when you can kind of step out of yourself, you can actually be more of a person and not have to adhere to all the boundaries and all the judgments and all the things that you define yourself as your whole life. And so it's ironic that he does it. He starts his journey through being not him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got really psychological. I got real psychological.
Yeah, you did. You totally did. You did. I mean, I think you explained why, like, Zuko was my favorite character when I was watching that show. It was not only because of the masterful voice acting, but he's like the embodiment of like the struggle between good and evil, right? And I think the Blue Spirit is almost like he doesn't have room in his own identity during season 1 to be good.
Right.
So he has to cosplay a good character.
Yeah.
Because he can't do it himself.
Totally.
So
I love that.
It's pretty wild.
I mean,
it's such good writing. It's such
know.
amazing writing.
I did not know how good this was when we were doing it.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't. I mean, Gene, when you're coming into when you're coming into the universe and becoming a part of the story and telling the story and moving the story forward beyond the first series, what were you thinking when you as a fan already knew that Zuko's arc was just so special? We hear stories about, and we maybe even touched on this with you when you were here the last time, but you hear stories about musicians hearing other people's albums and being like, I don't know, I wanted to write a masterpiece and then I heard Abbey Road and I was like, what am I doing? Like, how did it feel to feel like, wait, I'm entering into this world with this story that I personally like kind of put right at the top of best stories.
Yeah, I mean, it was super intimidating. It was like crazy intimidating, but I was really lucky that Mike and Brian were really pretty heavily involved all the way through. So I wanted to get the voice of the world right. So I would when I was working on other stuff, I would always have Avatar playing in the background just to get those voices in my head.
I love that.
And for Zuko specifically, his arc just felt so satisfying from beginning to end to me. It was hard to wrap my head around moving forward. It's almost like graduating, like you're graduating into another phase of your life. So him, helping restore peace to the world, and then, becoming friends with the gang, that was almost like him graduating into the next phase. And the next phase, like usually when you graduate into something else, you get all these new challenges in your life.
Yes.
And they disrupt all the things that you took for granted at the very end of your last phase. And that's how we went forward.
Oh,
like,
that's
all the things
the perfect
that he,
approach.
Yeah, like he became best friends with Aang. He has his awesome girlfriend.
Right.
All those things end up getting disrupted when you move into the next phase of your life.
That's what happens.
Oh, his arc is so good.
Right.
In going through book 3 too, just seeing just touching in with all of those moments where obviously, we have Iroh actually just saying what we've all kind of come to understand, but that we're understanding more and more profoundly every episode, which is that he has this battle inside of him. And here it's manifesting in the form of physical illness, which is something that I think a lot of people can relate to from in one way or another.
Your critical decision, what you did beneath that lake, it was in such conflict with your image of yourself that you are now at war within your own mind and body.
We see him making choices like that are still towards the good side, but that still have the sort of like, maybe this is a shortcut, or maybe if Katara kills the person who killed her mom, then she'll feel good. So you can see that he's sort of still wrestling with that. Where's the motivation coming from? Is it coming from revenge, or is it coming from love, or is it coming from loyalty and bravery and wanting to move the world into a better place, or is it coming from pain? And so I think there are some really important episodes within this arc where you really see him still, it's just so not simple, and
it's not. They make it not easy.
Be simple for anyone.
He loses. He goes back to Azula. Like he goes. It's not. You see it.
It's not clean.
It's not clean.
Clean.
Oh, it's not clean.
No.
And I think that's why we love him, because we're like, oh, this is kind of it's not a simple fix, like you said. It's harder than that. The journey to redemption is harder than that, and it's really wild that you mentioned earlier. I mean, like, I got to play the role, but we were part of this whole thing, and then now people look back almost 20 years later, and they're like, put that redemption arc against any story of pop culture. You're like, what?
Anything.
It's wild. Where you're like, oh my goodness, like that's kind of mind blowing. You're like, I can't even that. But then people have conversations about it, and they're like, we'll put that against any character in storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Any character. No joke. One of my favorite things about how they handled Zuko's redemption was that he went to the dragons. He and Aang went to the dragons to learn true firebending. So it's almost like this way, you think of Fire Nation as like this evil colonial power, and there are glimpses of good, right? All the way through. But then
glimpses of good, Gene.
Oh boy.
Glimpses
all the way through, and then but then that's the thing, is that with the dragons you realize, like the root of the nation.
I understand,
good, right?
Absolutely.
Like the dragons themselves are like the root of the nation.
Go back past Sozin. Go past Ozai. You gotta go past Sozin. Right. You gotta go back a ways, but it's there.
This is the deal. Uncle Iroh's been around.
Yeah,
and
that's true. You're right. Uncle Iroh's been around.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. And you're a writer, and we're writers. You want to write all these great things, and he goes to the firebending masters, and then the beauty of the art of it, and then Zuko's like, I understand. No writing. We don't got to understand. We don't need to know what he understands, but we all understand what he understands, and the writers don't need to write exactly what he understands. We're just like, yo, you know what? We all understand now. And now the world has changed, and we're changed with him. It's so wonderful when that happens. You're like, oh, less is more right now, huh?
Yeah. He doesn't go back and write in his diary.
No,
Dear diary, I had the craziest day today.
What
and
happened
I realized some
was
things.
I understood that the fire. This is like, no, dude. The writer's like, I got 2 words for this scene. I understand. And we're like, stamp. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's
beautiful.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Any last shout outs we want to give to our best redemption maybe in all of storytelling?
I don't know. I mean, that's a large piece of, but I don't know. Shout out to Zuko. Shout out to Mike, Brian, the whole staff. That they killed it. That's a phenomenal story.
And the phenomenal voice acting.
Thank you, Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I knew what we were doing when we did
it. No, you don't. You wouldn't. This would be so much less enjoyable for you if you were like, tell me something new. Whatever. It's a great arc. I know. Yeah.
Wait, when did you both feel it? Like that it was something bigger than just the TV show?
Later on, way later.
I knew it was a huge deal because of the legacy of the first series.
Way later.
But Dante did
We were
not
already
know.
done with the show. I think we were already done with it. Because there was no internet. There wasn't anything. And it wasn't, it's something like voice acting is part of our career, but, I'm doing on-camera stuff and you're doing all kinds of things. And you're like, that's a cool thing I did. And I really obviously went through it when we were doing it. And so, but I'm really having like flashbacks of things as we're watching the show now and trying to remember what I was going on in my life at that time. And it was it's very, I can tell you there's a lot of things with me and Zuko that kind of intertwined, which I think got into the DNA.
Really?
So it's just one of those great projects where all the things match up at the right time to make something special happen. And I don't even know until I'm looking back now and going, oh yeah.
I understand.
Now
he understands. Gene, I loved what you said about how to approach taking the story further. I cannot agree more with how just well you did that and what a critical part you play and are in the Avatar verse. And you just got it. Everybody knew they knew it when they reached out to you after, the work that you'd already done, and even just the idea that your disappointment with the live action movie ended up leading to like you making these beautiful stories that are a huge part of the Avatar verse makes me so happy. Talk about redemption.
Yeah,
that's redemption for the movie.
That's redemption itself.
You redeemed the movie only in the context of like creating some beautiful stuff that came out of your annoyance with it.
It was amazing to be a part of that, to be like in a small little corner of such an amazing universe. It was so fun. It's one of the highlights of my career.
Hardly a small
I can't wait to
corner.
get into the comics.
I know, we're going to go into all of that.
Because I can't wait to get
There's
into that.
too much to talk about. We got to
but
bring
there's
you
a
back.
lot. There's so much stuff canon in these things that we need to delve in and let people know.
Yeah, this is not the last time we're seeing you. That is a threat. Gene, where can people find you? Is there anything you would like people to check out, support, any place that you want some social?
Oh, sure.
Shout out?
So this is my most recent graphic novel. It's called Lunar Near Love Story, a rom-com written by me and drawn by an amazing artist named Lei Wen Pham.
Amazing.
Just came out in January. And then I'm working on a series right now called Books of Clash, which is based on a really popular mobile game called Clash of Clans.
Yes.
And so you can find out information about that.
Of course.
I'm on Instagram at geneleunyang.com.
Yes. Do it,
I'm
everybody.
Sorry, Gene Luen Yang, no.com. Gene Luen Yang.
Gene, exactly.
We can find you
on
Instagram right there. Thank you so much for coming back with us to talk about redemptions.
And
thank you for
this is fun.
Oh my gosh, we
always
love your perspective. We love your perspective, and we love your perspective on Jet too. Don't worry, we're always here for you. We're always here whenever you need to talk about your feelings about Jet. We're always here.
Have a great week, you guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Did you know you can hear bonus episodes of our award-winning podcasts?
Subscribe to Avatar Braving the Elements Premium on Apple Podcasts for early access, exclusive content, and ad-free episodes.
I'm so excited!